Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest is the Foreign Minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjarto. Thank you very much for being on the set.
It's my honor.
This year, the United Nations General Assembly held a summit on migrants and refugees. There were a number of speeches. I want to refer to the one given by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. He said, I quote, "Defenders of moral values are being outflanked by race-baiting bigots," adding, "We'll continue to name you publicly." He didn't name Hungary, but because of Hungary building a fence at the border of Serbia and Croatia, all the rhetoric we're hearing in your country, obviously he had you in mind.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that we were on his mind, since he had mentioned Hungary and the Hungarian Prime Minister personally a couple of weeks ago, saying that it is comparable what the Prime Minister represents to ISIS, which is an insult, and that is totally unacceptable from someone who holds such kind of an important position in UN. So I wrote a letter to the Secretary General of UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, saying that it's unacceptable. It's a politically biased statement, and I think that he became unworthy to hold this position.
So you're calling for his resignation, basically?
Actually, yes, I do.
And what was the response?
Nothing yet.
Nothing.
He didn't mention us during the day before the General Assembly.
Right. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Hungary, not only here at the United Nations, but within the European Union. One foreign minister, the foreign minister of Luxembourg, Jan Hasselborn, actually called for Hungary to be suspended or even expelled from the European Union for its policy vis-à-vis the migrants, but also for its crackdown on the media, on the judiciary. What's your response?
Well, if he was not the foreign minister of Luxembourg,
he is.
Yes, and if I had heard his comments without knowing that he is the foreign minister of Luxembourg, I would say it's funny. But since he is the foreign minister of Luxembourg, it's very serious. And again, it's a serious insult, because there he questioned the democratic establishment in Hungary. He questioned the authority of the democratically elected government in Hungary, and actually he questioned the right of the Hungarian people to express their opinion about the migration policy of European Union. So, you know, all these kind of comments are just being because these leaders of these, my understanding at least.
Because the feeling among human rights defenders is that Hungary is cracking down on civil rights.
But this is not true. I mean, those people who usually make these comments have never been to Hungary. And these kind of comments have been made from offices hundreds or thousands kilometers away of Budapest. So these people should first come to Hungary, should look at the situation there, and then make their statements afterwards. But why I think Jan Asselborn and the others put such kind of heavy and serious critics on Hungary is that they are actually nervous because of the referendum of Hungary to be taken place on the 2nd of October, where the Hungarian people will be the first people in Europe to be able to express their opinion about the future of Europe, about the future of Hungary, and about the migratory policy of the European Union. And it's very clear that Hungary doesn't represent the mainstream in migratory policy regarding EU, and I understand that they are nervous because of that.
To be precise, the referendum will ask that question. Do you want the EU to be able to decide the mandatory settlements of non-Hungarian citizens in Hungary without the consent of the Hungarian parliament? Many people are saying this is a question, you know, people are going to answer yes. So this is just
Or no.
mere.
Rather no.
Yeah, but you expect to win, right?
Yeah, that's why we expect people to vote no.
Exactly. So you expect a strong majority, but people say it is mere populism, that you're playing with their fears, you're trying to play with racist feelings, and that's dangerous.
But that's simply not true. I mean, how we come to this situation in Europe, which is a democratic integration, European Union, that we want to take away the right of people to make a decision in such regarding such important questions. I mean, it's now the top issue in Europe, whether countries will be allowed to make their decision on their own, whom to let in the given countries and whom not get in that given country. It's a matter of sovereignty. And now European Union wants to take away a part of our sovereignty.
Do they
and
still
this is
want
something,
this?
This is something we don't want to see.
Do they still want this? There was obviously
Yes,
a
they do.
plan of quotas country by country. Hungary was supposed to take 1,294 people, which is not a lot, by the way. But that's not happening anymore. There was no mention of it at the summit in Bratislava, so it seems this is not happening. So why are you doing this anyway?
Because there are continuous tricks committed by European institutions. Because first it had been said that the quotas will be not obligatory, voluntary. Then the decision was, no, it's not voluntary, it's obligatory. Then first it was about 120,000 people, then 160,000 people, and then it was about the penalizing those ones who don't want to comply with these decisions. So there are continuous tricks. And we understand that this package of quota issues in Brussels is heading the direction to apply a long-standing system of obligatory quotas without any kind of limitation. Now this is something what we don't want. Our position is crystal clear. We think that all the European regulations must be kept, and Schengen is one of the most important achievements of Europe. And actually, we have not been doing anything else than sticking to the Schengen regulations. And in the meantime, we are bashed and accused on a permanent basis, which is totally unacceptable.
So you think there's still a quota system that the European Union wants to impose on its members?
Yes,
it
I'm
seems
convinced.
that's not the case anymore.
Yes,
it's not
it
being
is.
mentioned.
Actually, there are always tricks going on in this respect. So many statements being made, and then other statements, and another statement. So we have to go for sure. And we have to be very clear in this respect. We will never accept the mandatory quota system. And that's why we went to court, just like Slovakia did.
Right. Why some racist slogans paid by the government in this campaign? There are references to migrants linked to harassment of women, to terrorism.
Because this is the case. This is the case. I mean,
you're making migrants the equivalent?
We can be hypocritic. We can continue being politically correct, but we can see the outcome. So I think it's a stupid debate whether uncontrolled and unregulated migration has led to increasing threat of terror in Europe or not. Because it did. It did. There were hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants entering the territory of European Union without knowing who they are, without any kind of registration, without any request for them to show any kind of documents which would identify.
But many terrorists were born and raised in France, for example. They had nothing to do with migration.
That's another issue. That whether our integration policies regarding the migrants years back have been successful or not. And I understand this is a taboo, to speak about parallel societies, to speak about no-go zones, to speak about unsuccessful patterns of integration. But this is the case. I mean, if you look back for last years, it's obvious that threat of terror has never been that significant in Europe than currently. And again, I want to say that it's a stupid question whether an uncontrolled and unregulated migratory flow can contribute to increasing threat of terror, because it can, and it did.
So you're confident this is going to be a success? It seems that your arguments, Hungary is obviously at the forefront because of some very strong declaration, especially by your Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Do you think this is gaining ground in Europe? Obviously, if you look at the recent results of local elections in Germany, you must be thinking that Angela Merkel maybe made a big mistake politically by opening her arms, in a way, in her country to migrants.
Most of the people think about migration differently than their governments or their political elites.
You think they think like your Prime Minister more and more?
Actually, I think that European people understood that this is a security issue. And this is what we have put forward, that this is a major security issue. And the responsibility of the states in Europe and everywhere in the world, of course, is to provide security for their citizens.
But isn't it also an identity issue? I mean, there's a lot of talk about Europe being Christian.
Yeah, right.
I mean, to speak bluntly, when I read what your government says, it seems that the idea is to target Muslims by saying they're not part of Europe, they shouldn't be part of Europe, let's say it.
Now, actually, I just don't want to enter into a debate whether we are allowed to say that Europe is Christian or not, because Europe is Christian, and
Not only.
I just simply don't accept that anyone challenges me to say this, because I think Europe is Christian. Of course, we have people from other cultures, from other beliefs, from other religions. Even in Hungary, we have Muslim people being very successful, being very respected members of the
But you don't
Hungarian
want too
society.
many.
But what we want is that our people made the decision whether we would like to authorize European Union to make the decision instead of us, whom to let in our country and whom not to let in.
Are Muslims a problem for Europe?
Actually, I don't say that, because what is a problem for Europe is an uncontrolled and unregulated migratory flow, because that brings a huge security threat to Europe. You know, it's unacceptable from our perspective that we have like border to Serbia and the border to Croatia, two peaceful countries, and people, migrants, were coming through Serbia, coming through Croatia, and violated our borders massively. My question is, what is the reason for anyone to violate a border between two peaceful countries? What's the explanation for that? And when I ask this question, European Union, United Nations, high-ranking officials, they never give the straight answer.
So you're in America. Donald Trump also speaks of building walls. Is he a good future president of the United States?
Well, that's something that the American citizens have to make a decision about. What I can tell you is that if you ask me whose migratory policy is closer to what we represent in Europe, it's of course the Republican candidate. But when we started to build fence on our southern border, we have studied how United States protects the country on the southern border to Mexico. And they have, huge walls there. They have very strict rules there. In Hungary, we didn't even make us anything similar like that. We built a fence and we protect our own border, because this is the responsibility of the state.
Thank you very much, Peter Szijjarto, for answering our questions. Thank you very much for watching this edition of The Interview on France 24.